Well, my name is David McNeil, and this is my third year in the Precision Rifle Series. The second year I've made the finale, which is an invitation only. They take the top 150 shooters in the country, and we come together. And this year it's in Texas, and it's a Precision Rifle Series is a long-range shooting organization. We compete basically from the muzzle to about 2,000 yards. I'm currently shooting for Paul McCoy, PMAC Precision. And my rifle here is chambered in 6XC. It's got an impact action, 26-inch Bartline barrel, MPA chassis. I have a Trigger Tech Diamond Pro trigger on there, and to top it off, I've got a Valdada G2 scope on there. I guess the thing I love, I chose this rifle, this caliber, because it's so easy to tune. It's easy to load for. It's very consistent. It's the same thing that I noticed with the scope also, is that the thing I love about it is it's repeatable, it's easy to use, it's durable. I got this scope back in late June for, I think it was the Quiet Riot, and I put it on the scope, my scope on the rifle. I zeroed it back then in June, and the most amazing thing is I haven't touched the zero since then. So it has been absolutely reliable for 6 national level matches, thousands of rounds of training, thousands of rounds in competition, thousands of miles of travel. I've heard people say that travel is not hard on a rifle, but Delta Airlines threw my rifle out of the aircraft, and it broke the Pelican case, it broke the lock, it broke the latch, and it broke the wheel. The scope maintained at 0. Another funny thing about that is I had a friend of mine sit on it accidentally, and it retained at 0. So absolutely, totally reliable. I don't worry about my scope if I hit things. I don't worry about my scope if I bump it. I don't worry about my scope if it gets dropped, if I smack it on barricades, if I tip it over when I'm at a stage. I don't worry about it. It's so unbelievably reliable and robust and strong that I just don't worry about it. The tracking is mechanically just absolutely perfect. I've done several box tests on it. The beauty of this rifle, Paul builds a rifle that is, he guarantees quarter MOA. I've never had a rifle shoot more than 1/10 of an inch if I'm paying attention. It very much meets the quarter MOA guarantee. I did a tall target test on this thing. 33 shot groups, average group size was just slightly over 0.25 inches. After 30 groups, and it tracked mechanically absolutely perfect all 3 times. So I went from muzzle from 0 all the way up to 10 mil and back 3 times, and it tracked exactly perfect. So the cool thing about that is there's no guessing games. I can go from beyond 1,000 yards by just dialing, and I don't have to guess if the data is going to be on or off. At that point, it's just making sure my ballistic coefficient and my velocities are correct. I don't have to worry about the erectors. I don't have to worry about aberrancy in the optics. I guess the first thing I noticed about this scope when I opened it up, first thing when I unboxed it, I was like, man, that's a huge scope. It just dwarfed my other scopes. Until I got it next to it and realized it was actually more compact than my Vortex or my Schmidt. The 40mm tube makes it look much larger than it really is. And then when I mounted it on the rifle, the very first thing I noticed how bright it was. It was just so unbelievably bright compared to the other scopes I've had. And I've got a number of other high-end scopes, or scopes in the similar price range, whether it's Schmidt & Bender or Night Force or Leupold or Vortex. I found it to be much brighter than the other scopes that I use. In fact, I found the resolution, the color. I prefer the European glass. It seems to me that the European glass has a more warmer colors to it. I find that's important when I'm scanning an area for targets, especially when you have like a steel target that's kind of grayed out or leaded out from being shot up a bunch up against, say, sage or dry grass. When I'm using some of my other scopes, some of the other, like, say, Japanese scopes, great optical quality on those, it's a clear picture, but I found that it's kind of more of a bluish hue to it, and so finding a gray scope on a gray background with that color, with that contrast, is just it's difficult. Whereas with the image quality here, not image quality, but the color just kind of pops. It's easier to find targets with kind of a European glass like the Valdada. It's the G2, it's easier for me to find things when I'm scanning. Yeah, absolutely, just love the scope. I can't can't say enough good things about it at this point. Magnification is fantastic. The turrets, the scope I came from to this was a Schmidt & Bender, awesome scope, but I struggled under time pressure using the turrets. Very fine graduations between the clicks, very fine. And so I'd find myself sighting down the rings like it was a gun sight to make sure that I was on whatever I needed to dial. This one has much larger turrets. It's a much more generous distance between the numbers. The clicks are extremely positive. It's good tactility to it. It's audible. It's just, I find that it's really easy for me to repeat, really easy to get under time pressure to dial up exactly what I want. Another thing I love about this scope is the zero stop. It's adjustable. I can change the zero stop and stop it exactly where I want. I don't like scopes that give you zero stop exactly at zero or give you that half a mil below zero. There are stages that we run. Sometimes you have to do hold under stages. Sometimes the ROs create these just these cool stages where you're aiming at a point in space because you're shooting over the curvature of a hilltop or a ridge, and you're hitting a target that you can't see when you're proned out or in the shooting position. So you have to mill a target, you have to mill something above it and use those reference points. And the beauty of this is that I can use, I can dial under and then make the shot. So I'm holding the reticle on exactly what I'm aiming at, as opposed to holding up or holding under in space on the reticle itself. So I like having the ability to dial, and I usually set mine, 5 mil, my zero stop at 5 mils. So I've got 5 mils of hold under on here, which is a tremendous amount, but as long as I don't have to spin it all the way around, I'm not going to get lost. There's no way for me to get lost if I'm doing that. So speaking of the reticle itself, the line thickness here is, I think, is just perfect. It's not too thick, it's not too thin. I have reticles on other scopes that the line thickness is a little bit heavy, so when you're deep into like that 25 power, it fills the lens. Shots get lost, especially the small 6mm pills that I shoot. They kind of get lost in the dirt or in the grass, and with the line thickness here, it's just perfect. I can see what's going on at the high magnifications, and at the low magnifications it doesn't disappear. So it doesn't turn into a smudge. You can still resolve everything on it. So I think that they got the line thickness on here, in my opinion, perfect for what I'm seeing. So in regards to the parallax, this is what I found with the Recon G2. It's extremely forgiving. My experience with other manufacturers is that sometimes you have to be really meticulous on where you set your parallax at different ranges, which can affect how you perceive the target and how you shoot at it and your overall accuracy. I found with this one that I can just, if I'm shooting anywhere between 400 and 800 yards, I just kind of set it in some range there, and I don't worry about parallax with this scope. I'm not at a stage ever thinking that, I'm going to check my parallax. It's just something that I've had to do with other scopes. It's extremely forgiving. So one of the things I find about this scope that just absolutely amazes me is the amount of internal adjustment that we have. The Recon G2 mounted on this scope, or mounted on this rifle, I've got a 20 MOA rail that's built into the impact action. I have 26 mil of internal adjustment, which will get me from the muzzle out to about 1,900 yards. It's really cool. So when I go to every once in a while, the stages in the PRS, you'll have a real long shot. So for example, in New Mexico, we had a mile shot, and it was not an issue. I could dial up the 19 mils that I required to hit a mile, and I didn't have to do holdover. A lot of my friends were having to dial everything they had and then add a couple of mils with holdover on the reticle, and I just don't have to do that. I can get out to 1,900 yards just dialing with the 20 MOA rail, with a 20 MOA base on here. So it's important to me. I mean, it's just, I've got lots of adjustment. I just don't ever run. Yeah. I'm very impressed with the clarity. It's so bright, it's so clear. The overall color that the scope is just amazing. I noticed that there's no aberrancy from edge to edge. There's no graying. I noticed there's no tunneling. I have some other scopes that as you get into lower magnifications, you get tunneling. I don't get that with this. I've got a generous field of view. what I like about the scope is, the 48 to 30, we rarely shoot beyond, say, 15 power. 12 to 15 power is pretty common in the PRS. We shoot most of our stages there. But if I have a small target or a hostage shot or, be very precise, I can dial up to 30. The magnification ring moves extremely smooth. It's very smooth. It's got a little, bump on here. I put my thumb and it's just easy to grab and move. It's not an issue to just change it on the fly. It's very well thought out. The ergonomics are great. Overall, I can't be more impressed with it. Yeah, so whether I'm at the match or just at the range, people ask to look through it because they've never seen one, and almost always people look through it, and the first thing they say is, "Man, this is bright. Like, this is so bright." And then after that, it's usually the comments are, "This is extremely clear," and it's like, it is absolutely unbelievably bright and very clear. I had to get, because I'm so used to the other scopes, I'd get on my cheek weld and my head was wrong. I had to actually train myself to find this eye box. And once I found it, it's totally natural to me now. And it was just interesting because, like you said, there's a sweet spot on the other scopes, which is much further back on other scopes than this one. This one has got a good eye relief to it. So the G2 has a great eye relief. So if you're shooting, some Magnum, some beast or cannon, you're not going to get scoped. So the other thing I noticed with this, the eye box is generous and it's not finicky. There's a sweet spot to it, but I can move my head forward and back depending if I'm prone or shooting offhand or on some barricade. It's just I don't have to hunt for the sweet spot on there. I don't find that tunneling.
Impact. Impact.